Jim, several of the listeners who get great night's sleep have been sending in some quotes from...
They often go to sleep listening to this program.
Several listeners have sent in quotes from Jade Cargill. She was recently interviewed on the Bootleg Kev podcast. Let me play you a couple of these clips. And
is this a highly rated program we're talking about here, or is he just looking around for things to be on? Bootleg?
I'm not familiar with the show. It does not appear to be a wrestling show, so it's something outside of your wheelhouse here. But let's hear a little bit from Jade. We have 3 different quotes here I want to play and get your thoughts on. Jade Cargill talking about CM Punk. Hold on.
Other promotions, right? There's the big promotion.
I assume that's Bootleg Kev.
Promotion, right? There's house shows throughout the week.
Yep.
That aren't on TV, so people can kind of like learn without it being like memed.
With the same partner, yes.
Right. Yeah, you usually on the house shows, you always are wrestling with the same person.
Yeah.
You guys, you know.
That you're on TV with.
So you're just kind of like really out here. Obviously, you're training when you're not on TV, but like all your high pressure situations, we're kind of going through it with you on TV, so.
I mean, for example, the first time I used a chair, I remember CM Punk was like, you have to choke it up like this. And like, because they were like, oh, yeah, you're going to use a chair. I'm going to use a chair. I've never used a chair in my life. How do I use a chair? And no one gave me instructions other than him to show me how to use a chair. And I had to perform this on live TV.
And we'll see him Punk's the GOAT. That's why.
Yeah.
So
he's a great guy.
Let me stop it there for a second, just because you've dealt so much just with training. What do you think of what she's saying here? They said you're going to use a chair and no one told her anything else about it.
Well, this is wrong on so many levels. I don't even know where to... One, you've got... let's get the kayfabe world out of the way. You've got a supposed fucking champion. I can't remember what they call her belt. TBS champion. Talking about, I was going to use a chair, and I've never used a chair. I don't know how to use a chair. Oh, my God. But secondly, why the fuck are they letting this green klutz telling her just use a chair and don't fucking, let's walk through this. Let's, have you ever used a chair before? If I ever told anybody, I mean, past goddamn, in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, yes, I just say, hit somebody with a chair because everybody was a veteran. They knew what the fuck. But in OVW or even in Ring of Honor, I would make sure that everybody had the fucking general gist of the whole chair thing down. So nobody got their head caved in or their teeth knocked out or whatever the case may be. So it was up to CM Punk, who among his many responsibilities, I haven't heard that he was, being utilized as an agent, but apparently he had to walk up and say, here, don't, that he had to tell her to choke up on it. Apparently she was going to grab the fucking ends of the goddamn thing, and that you can't control that. The ends of the legs or whatever. So, no, on so many levels, this sounds like such a fucking amateur shit show. And it comes off to me horribly that she is not only, somebody's going to say, well, Cornette, you exposed the business on here. Well, I'm not currently on their television program as one of their champions. And secondly, I don't sound like a complete clueless idiot. Just because we all follow wrestling and know that she's never wrestled anywhere else and doesn't know shit from apple butter doesn't mean that she needs to spill her guts on a podcast. It's not even help me, Brian.
Well, again, I'm not going to kill her just because all of the wrestlers do this nowadays, and I'm not saying that's right, but it's just the reality of the situation.
This is even more egregious because it's not even it was fake when I hit him over the head with a chair, but it's like I don't know how to hit with a chair. What am I doing with a chair?
Well, let's get beyond your distaste for what she's saying.
Why is she the champion? How did she get to be the champion when she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing?
Well, let's go back to what she's saying, and let's go back to what she's saying also about CM Punk.
All right.
So you used the chair for the first time ever on TV.
On TV.
How'd that go?
It was pretty interesting. That was last year. Let's just move forth. I've learned my lesson, and it's gonna get better.
Because there's an art to everything.
Yes.
And I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I always tell people like, I feel like wrestling is one of the most, it is art.
It is
truly.
I love that you said that. Yes, it is art.
It is an art form that is of the highest difficulty, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that stuff. And there is an art to everything you guys do, including how to hit somebody with a fucking chair so you don't kill them.
Yeah.
So how do you do it?
I can't tell you that. Wait, you're trying to get me caught up over here. But I will say that it is an art. You don't want to completely destroy your opponent where they can't come back next week and perform or something like that. But it's all an art. We're artists, and we're trying to paint a picture for a story that our audience can follow and just respect.
Now, that's the one modern thing that a lot of wrestlers say that drives you crazy, right? The whole idea that we're artists or that it's art, or what are your thoughts on that? Because she's not the only one saying this nowadays, and you know that.
But I have in the past compared wrestling to a performance art because in some way it is connected to what Andy Kaufman would do when he wouldn't break fucking character and wouldn't wink at people and wouldn't let them and made them uncomfortable. When it's something that's happening in front of people's, it's a performance art. You can draw that comparison, but these knuckleheads are talking about it's art like it's poetry and painting and whatever the fuck, and they can just be free to change all the rules and express themselves the way they want, and nothing is wrong, everything's allowable, and the whole 9 yards, and it's just fucking ridiculous. So the art that Twinkle Toes and his ilk are expressing is not necessarily the performance art of something that at the root of it is supposed to be conflict.
All right, well, let's get a couple more quotes from her. This is Jade Cargill talking about CM Punk.
You said that you were hanging out with CM Punk quite a bit.
Yes, at Comic-Con.
What was something that you learned from Punk? Because he's my all-time favorite. I love Punk.
Just stand on what you believe, and don't be a pushover. And I admired that because coming into the business and being new, a lot of people, it's like you have to almost shrink yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know who I am. Again, I lived several lives. I've lived real life. And just because I didn't want to do this all my life or because I didn't put in the time, I refuse to let anybody look at me less than. And I refuse for anybody to treat me anything different because outside of these lines, I'm a human freaking being and you're not going to treat me like anything else. So I'm not saying that anyone treated me any type of way. I'm just saying in wrestling.
You hear about that in wrestling.
Yeah, of course, especially on the indies. And I'm not familiar with the indies at all, but I'm not going to be walked over. And I refuse for you to because I'm Jade Cargill. And outside of these lines, I'm Jade Cargill. So I'm not going to let you address me anything less. So the fact that he told me to stand on what I believe and don't be a pushover, that stuck with me. He's a great guy.
Let me stop it there because so much of the narrative we hear about CM Punk is big bad CM Punk, and there are guys who thought he was a cancer. We know what Jericho thinks. We know what the Bucks in their camp think. We've always said there are other wrestlers there, men and women, who had positive experiences from CM Punk, and here's one of them saying it out loud.
And apparently, from what I understand from things that have been said, Punk was helpful or contributive to a lot of the women's locker room. Apparently, he'd probably need to spend a lot more time with some of them. But I'm glad for Jade that he told her to stand up for herself. I wish she wouldn't sound so fucking flummoxed and green on podcasts, but at the same time, it's another example of, yes, there was plenty of people that CM Punk was helping, apparently, that he was contributing to, that he was trying to coach or mentor or just give advice to, that had no problem with him whatsoever. And that side of the locker room doesn't get as much publicity as the other side for some unknown reason.
What do you think about what she's saying here? Because this isn't a new thing. The idea that someone with a big personality gets brought into, let's say, WWE. Let's not even use AEW here as the example. And they kind of have to shrink down a little bit, not upset people. They have to walk on eggshells. CM Punk has never really done that. I'm assuming that's kind of what the advice is. You stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
Just don't let yourself be put into that box. Why do you think that happens? And when did that start, that insecurity that's almost forced on the wrestlers once you go to a major company.
Well, once you started signing these ridiculous contracts where you can't do anything else and there's no place else to go where you can make anywhere near that amount of money, and most of the guys have been brought up over the last 10 or 15 years to just consider that and they say it on television, they're thankful and lucky to be there. And that's a complete reversal of the way the business was when there were plenty of places to work and all the guys, took care of themselves and were true independent contractors and went from place to place when they wanted to. You can't do that anymore. So yeah, everybody's going, oh shit. I'm worried about this or that or the other thing, because what's your fucking alternatives in a lot of cases? Now, having said that, you got to be careful who you give that advice to, because maybe I don't know what other lives Miss Cargill has lived. I never heard of her from Apple Butter until she showed up on AEW television, and she might not fit in this category, but some people of these modern times getting into business, if you tell stand up for yourself, don't let people walk all over you. Well, then some fucking jackoff that looks in the mirror and sees $1 million when everybody else is seeing something dirty, green, and wrinkled is going to try to stand up for himself and say the way it's going to be and this and that. And they're going to say, get the fuck out of here. So you got to also pick your spots in that and know when they really want you to be there, and they'll put up with any fucking tomfoolery from you.
Well, let's get our final bit of audio here from Jade Cargill on the Bootleg Kev podcast talking about CM Punk. This is her talking about the all-out press scrum.
Crazy was backstage the night that Punk did that press conference with Tony Khan sitting next to him, and shit hit the fan. And it was like, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I have no idea. So I wasn't there. Okay. I had already left the stadium.
I wasn't even there.
Right after my match, I left. I was like, all right, like I'm out, guys. And so I heard about it just like the rest of the world at the same time.
Yeah.
It was pretty shocking. But
and again, I saw that look that Tony Khan gave him, like.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. From my opinion, Punk's a great guy. He's been nothing but nice to the women's locker room. Right. He talks to me, tells me his experience again at Comic-Con. We got really close because he was my tag mate in the interviews, and I learned so much from him and so much knowledge in the industry. And again, he's, been in 2 different companies, and of course he can do whatever the hell he wants to do. So he doesn't need it. Right. He does it because he loves it. Yeah. And that to me speaks to me because I don't need it. I do it because I love it, and I appreciate people like that.
Well, there it is, Jim. And let me just say, I'm starting to like her. I think she seems all right. She seems like she has a good head on her shoulders.
Now, what is it that she's done that she does this because she likes it, not because she needs to?
She transitioned to becoming a professional wrestler.
No, but what I'm saying, we need to find out what line of work she was in previously. And that appears to be very profitable. We should possibly pursue that endeavor.
I believe she was an athlete.
Well,
of some sort. Basketball? I'm not exactly sure what she did.
Right. Well, we'll check on that later on at the home office.
Final thoughts on what she's saying about CM Punk and how this fits into the overall narrative about him.
Well, what we just said, it doesn't fit the overall narrative, but only one side has been providing the overall narrative, except for us over here in the corner. So it's been amplified a lot more by people who buy into that type of thing and buy into the type of people who spread that type of thing. So we just deal in facts here. Facts. Just the facts, ma'am. And there, Miss Cargill just gave us some facts.